folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA wrap, where we take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective, each time asking ourselves, what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones? I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the Rocky Mountains. Folks, I'm glad you could join me. It's a Thursday, last broadcast of the week, and a lot's happening. So let's pop in and look at the ending numbers real quick. So what do we have here? Industrials down 167. The low here was what, about 50 lower, so about 210 or so. So down 1%, 167, closes 446, almost 447. The S&P's down 17 3/4, almost 1%, 1870, got as low as 62, and that's going to be an important number when we look at the charts. Composite, 3/4% lower, 31 points, 31 1/3, 4069. Composite. And as we'll see on the NDX, SPX, all of them, they come back, they do some testing, but they do it on lighter volume. And that's going to be an important thing to look at. The NDX down 28, 35.65, 3/4%. And our leader on the leaderboard, the Russell, 1095.98, underneath swing point low on a weekly now, 2.25%. I think that's actually... excuse me, I don't think that's actually right. Let's do a quick check here. That number doesn't look right to me. Let's put up the Russell and let's see what our numbers were. 1095, 2.25%, down 25. That's not down 25, folks. Something's wrong with their numbers. That's down 10. It was down at the lows 25, right? But not here. Pops back up, closes at 1095. It was down actually less than everything else today. It was down a little less than 3/4%. So something's haywire with their numbers. As far as what happened, it really is a tale of the tape. Let's pop in. Unfortunately, my ending numbers haven't come across yet in terms of volumes. So we're gonna have to kind of flip between charts here, and I'll keep checking these to see, while we're doing the show, to see if we get those ending numbers, because I'd really like to get them on the indexes. But without those, we'll work our magic without them. So let's start using the SPY, and we'll flip back and forth and look at it as well as the index itself. So the SPY comes back. And we're going to use this for approximation of volume, 1.5. We're coming back into, now this is the retest. Let's go over this again. Every time you get a break, and in this case we broke above the highs, right? Whenever you get a break and you break above something, the first thing you want to look at is, what is that retest, regenerate zone going to be? And in this particular case, if you draw it out, it's top to bottom of that bar that was broken. And in this case, it's a big bar. So the low is very low. Well, what does the SPY do today? Or actually, if we look at the SPX here in a second, it goes all the way down. The SPY doesn't quite do it. The SPX actually tests underneath it and closes back over it. So it does a full retest regen, which is typically what they like to do when they come back within 6 bars that we've talked about before. So we get all the way back down there, but if you go checking the volumes on this, you get 1.6, you're doing 1.5. So you're coming back with slightly less volume. You're hitting it pretty good though, but it is less volume. So essentially you're doing a retest regen, you test the low, you close back over it, and you have lighter volume. On the SPY, you have the lighter volume. I don't know yet on the GSP, but if you flip over here, you can see that we did that full retest regen right back underneath that low, not closed, but got under it, back over it. And once we get the volumes in here by the end of the show, we'll see what they look like. But right now, if I use the approximation of the SPY, that looks to me like we generated We did the full retest regen, and we're going to try to work back on some sort of a bounce at least. That's the S&P. Remember, we have an ABCD structure that hasn't been completed still, right? And we had a gravestone doji that gave us the heads up on this pullback. S&Ps, if we look at the and the Dow did the same thing. Got up underneath it, back over it, same idea. If we look at the NASDAQ, and actually let's look at the NDX. The NDX is stronger. Now the NDX, along with the NASDAQ and with the Russell, they're all doing different tests. And on the NDX, the test that we're doing is we're actually coming back in to the 428 bar. So we're coming back into this bar, excuse me, the 428 bar. We're coming back into it, right? So we get into the bar. We have slightly heavier volume, right? We test into the bar and bounce back. And I believe we actually closed over it on the Qs 85, 87.11, 87.14, right? And volume's 58 going into 58, right? So slightly lighter volume, just barely. But again, like the S&P, the SPY, you're coming back with a little less volume, but almost the same. You test into the bar, you're not hitting it with heavier volume, you flip back over it, you close over it. That's a successful hold, if you will, of a support area. Not critical, but a support area. If I look at the NDX itself, the NDX comes back in, it also tests into that bar, and it doesn't get out of it. 35.70, and it closes at 35.65. And when we get the numbers, we'll see if the volumes were heavier or not. Now, the other one that's doing something even more interesting is the IXIC, because it's coming back much deeper. The bar that we're looking at on the NDX is here, the April 28th bar. The IXIC is coming back into the April 15th bar. So it's coming back into that bar. That high is 40.54. We go into it, back over it, close 14 points over it. And by the end of the show here, we'll see what those volumes look like. And then if we go to our trusty canary, the Russell comes down, and the Russell test, it's already broken this low. It broke it on this bar. It tests into the other low. That low is 1095.79. We close at 1095.99, 20 cents over it. So we're over it on the Russell. But if we flip over and we pull up the weekly, we have a swing point low over here that is at 1099.67. And today's close is up underneath there by 4 points. Tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow the weekly will print. It's going to be a key number, whether it breaks or it doesn't. That's what we've been watching for what is this, a month and a half, 2 months now. The Russell coming back, trying to break it out. So on the Russell, you're seeing it come back, and if I do the approximation using the IWM, you're seeing it come back with respect to that bar with plenty of volume. So it's going to break it with volume. With respect to the big bar down on the Feb 3 low, volume there 307. So far we're due 279, and that means to me that we're going to break it, and we're going to break it with volume if we actually break that low. But so far that doesn't look to be the case. Now if we look at the volumes here, 76, almost 77. We come into it with 74, almost 75. Like the others, even on the Russell, which has the most pressure being applied, the volume's still not quite there. You get another hammer reversal. That looks to me like this is going to flip around and try to bounce. How far it bounces, that's going to be the next question. We did the successful retest, regenerate lower. Now we're seeing the other indexes, in particular the strong ones, the Dow and the S&P, doing a successful retest, regenerate, a bullish one. This is a bearish one, that's a bullish one. Those are trying to do a successful retest, regenerate higher. Given that tug of war, right now it looks as if we're going to get some sort of a bounce one more time. And then we're either going to break this back higher and the correction is going to be over, or we are going to break it down. If you ask me which one I think, the way it's hitting this thing over and over again, it does look like it's going to try to break it down. It's just a question of when and what kind of pressure it gets when it does it. So those are the indexes. We'll get those ending numbers here in a bit and see what they look like, and that will give us a better read on the actual indexes themselves. Let's pop over and look at the sectors right quick together. So if we pop up the sectors, and let's start with the IYT. So now these, just like the indexes, are coming back into support areas on the retrace. And so if we look at the IYT, remember on two or three of these now we had breakouts. So here's the IYT, that's the retest regen zone, but you're also coming into a high volume bar here, and you're coming into the low of the breakout. So a lot of times this area, right, the low of the swing point you broke and the low of whatever the bar was that did the breaking becomes kind of the target area. It came right down into it, had heavier volume than that bar, slightly lighter volume than the swing point bar, and definitely lighter volume than this bar. It looks like, in the way it closed with the doji, it looks like a successful retest and attempt to regenerate higher. So the IYT looks like it wants to try to trade higher. Semiconductors, different story. They are coming down, at least the SMHs coming down with no volume really, coming after 2-3 swing point lows actually. If and when this one breaks, like the Russell, you're going to get the Russell did this, I don't know, three weeks ago. You're going to get a faster move if you get a fly through here, right? Because you're breaking 3 of them at once, and that will give you a nice push. So the semiconductor is still looking pretty suspect. If we look at the SOX itself, which is a little bit broader, it's not quite as desperate yet. So it did come down with some more volume, but compared to what it was coming into, so you're coming into the top of the April 11th bar, a lot more volume there than what you came into it with, and you can see how it flipped around, closed just over it. And that's kind of the story as we go through the sectors. All the sectors were to retrace back down and find support in areas that you would think. So here again, here's another breakout. This particular breakout is on this swing point high, so just like the S&P 500, you got a big wide price break bar there. It's coming into the bottom of it. That looks like it's going to hold, bounce back the other way. XLB, and the ones that haven't reached, they actually could reach given how deep they are now. But just like I talked about a second ago, the bottom of the breakout bar really was the high. And so what did you do? You came in to test it, and you were testing the bottom of this. That little zone there is where you would expect it to try to trade to, and that's what it did. Okay, so that's the XLB. And XLE comes off with heavier volume. That one looks like a range trade finally. So the XLE comes off, range trading is going to try to trade back into the retest regen zone here before it's over. XLF comes into the top of the swing point low. This is the April 11th bar. Almost got to it, not quite. Top was 2154, got to 2156. Not enough volume. Also wants to flip around. And they all started to flip by the end of the day. The one that is different is the XLI. This one actually came off with more volume. It is doing a retest regen. And so from that perspective, again, actually this one's not different now that I look at it again, because this volume bar here, which is the swing point high, it broke 2 of them. This was the highest of the 2. That retest regen and the breakout bar, that overlap is right there, and that's what it tested into and bounced and had less volume than the bar it was testing. So that one also looks successful so far. One thing I should say before I go any farther is that, when you're doing these retest and regenerate sequences, just because you don't break it down the first attempt doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to regenerate higher. What it says is that it held in terms of the test, where it should. That doesn't mean that it will regenerate higher. It means that it probably, it has a better chance of now regenerating because it held the first test. The next test is to actually get back over the swing point high, which in this case it hasn't, and then to trade on up. And that is what the regenerate is for, right? It tries to regenerate price back in the direction of the break. It sometimes takes a few bars before that happens. Sometimes it happens right away, depending on how forceful this trend is. So in this particular case, right, it comes back in, it tests. So far it's not out of it, but it's doing what it's supposed to. You're always looking to see if those tests, where they test and what they should do if it actually does it. And so far, all of these are doing it. XLK, same sort of thing. And I could flip through all of them. The weakest one is the XLY. So the XLK comes back in, doing a retest regen on this bar. Oh, this is the one that was different. Yeah, this was it. So the XLK is also doing a retest regen, and this one actually is hitting it with more volume. So that, when you see that, that says it's probably going to try again. It's not quite done. It held it on price, but it failed on volume. And the last one, XLV actually held up really well today. XLY, although the XLV is back under that breakdown bar, the XLY came in to the April 15th low. Also, trades into it, doesn't have as much volume, flips around. That also looks like support's going to hold. So almost unanimously, the sectors look like they want to hold. The indexes look like they want to hold. And then if I go over to the ox markets right quick, the TLT itself, this, remember last night, looked as if it was going to break. And these are what the importance of tests are. So when I see something that should have failed, right, not fail, which is exactly what happened here, and volume comes into it, which is also what happened, although it is going to be lighter, it's going to be a suspect breakout. That just tells me that this market in general is much stronger than it even looks, and we know it looks strong. Now the other thing it did do today is it finished off another ABCD structure. One after another, it keeps knocking them off, one by one, right? We've talked about this many times before. If you just go back through here, one by one, these structures continue to trade to the north, one after another. You can go back. I mean, it's been doing it now this whole 3-month period. Finishes it off, high volume. I suspect it's going to come back to a retest regen now. It will come probably back within 6 bars, which means it can get to the bottom. But this, again, this did something it shouldn't have done, and that is it broke over and finished off the ABCD off what looked like a failed bid to get higher. And when you do that, that tells you the retrace may not be that deep. Even though normally they're that deep, that's the difference. The difference is how it breaks. In this particular case, it shouldn't have, and it did. Okay, actually I didn't look at the dollar. Let me take a quick peek at the dollar and see what it did. Yeah, really not much gyration there. Let me see what the FXE is looking like. Okay, so this is why. So the FXE finally tests. This is where Draghi basically told us that he's going to ease. And the FXE goes from 137.60 down to 134.90 without any kind of a bounce. Now it gets to the bottom. Now it's going to bounce, and it's simply going to set up the next leg down. Let's see what the weekly looks like. And it's hitting it with a lighter volume on the weekly as well. Yeah, so that's going to bounce, and then it's going to set the next leg up for the downside. And this may, if you look at it here, this may actually hold for a little bit longer because you got a huge bar anchoring this bar, right? Huge in the sense of volume. So this may hold on for a little bit longer until Draghi does his thing, and then get the sell-off. Yeah, so that's an ABCD down to take it to the lows. Actually, it won't even go that far. Okay, so dollar, I don't know, doesn't look that interesting really. Gold, silver, they couldn't do anything today. They were down. Commodities were down in general today. Gold, that's the weekly. Let's pull up the daily. Really nothing happening here. And silver, same thing. So I don't think there's anything interesting in those markets right now. All right, I had an email, received an email here wanting to look inside one of these stocks. So let me pull this up. And the question was, last night, if you remember, or if you did watch the show, and if not, you can go and review it on YouTube. They're all posted, the archives there. It's easy to get to. And if you haven't done it, folks, you can come over here to the TATV, go to the subscription, all channels here, and pop over to YouTube, and you can actually subscribe to the channel. And you can get all the archive shows, you can get alerted to them when they're posted and so forth. So, if you haven't done that, that might be something you want to do to keep in touch with what's going on. It makes it a lot easier. Question here was, is this a short? And the question is on intraday, not so much daily, but I always like to, have a context of what I'm looking at. So it's coming back with 41, going into some pretty good stuff. And so, yeah, that looks all right. So let me look here so I can see my swing points easier. And yeah, so that swing point is going to try to come back into is 24.85. Now, let's go back to the chart. So the question is this a trade short? And I'm gonna put it on 5 days. I tell you what, I'll put it on 10 days. And what he's looking at is he's looking at 60 minutes. I think it was 1 hour, 30 minute, and 15 minute charts. And so if I look at 1 hour, and the thing you want to do, and I haven't did the calculation, but you want about 60 bars, and this looks like about 60. Okay, so the first thing it's doing is you get a break of these swing point lows, right? And now you're getting a little push back up today, back into these swing point lows. So the first thing you want to do is you want to say, okay, where's the retest regen, and is it more than 6 bars? Before it starts to retest. So here's my retest regen, and you can see that I've already started the retest regen here on the very next bar, right? And now I'm coming back into it. If I come within 6 bars, which is what I have here twice now, that says I can get to the other side of it. So you have to first realize that it can come all the way back up to that area. So that's the first thing. That's 2670. Now let's put it on the 30 minutes, or what was it? Yeah, 30 and 15. So let's look at the 30. You see here, what you're doing is you're looking at almost the same thing, right? It's not really telling you much different. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same chart. Although here, your retest regen zone is going to be lighter. It's going to be smaller, right? Because it's a 15-minute chart. And so here it's telling you top of this bar, and that looks like a pretty good place to potentially short it, knowing that you could have it trade all the way back up to here on you. So either you got to tight stop it, or you got to be ready to short it even higher. So that's the next thing. And then the last thing is if we go to the 15, let's see what that one looks like. And again, you're going to have the same principles, and here this one's almost identical. So now let me quickly, while I have a second, I got a couple. Now I usually put them on 5s, 10s, and I'm doing it on different times. For example, I'm doing a 5-minute on a daily. I'm doing a 10-minute on a 2-day. Right, if I can get the 10-minute back up. And then I'm doing the, a different one. So, you have to find what works for you, and I'm sure there's other combinations. That's just the combinations I do. I do 15 on for the long term. And then I use those to figure out how to trade it, and I was talking about all this last night. So that setup that you're talking about on MU, it looks to me like you want to wait at least until you get that retest up to probably the top of that. You want to try as best you can get that retest up to this price point that we just looked at. I forgot the numbers now, but you can go back and review it, right? Which is, yeah, it's this area. So it's 2630 roughly, 2625. that's probably where you want to do your first one if you do it there. Otherwise, wait until the 2670, which is on your longer term time frame. All right, questions over here, TRLA and Twitter. Let's see what these are right quick and see if TRLA. And it doesn't look like I'm getting my quotes either. I was just checking again. So Trulia, this is a like Zillow. It's a real estate website. They do advertisements. And the volume of stock charts. Do you want it? Oh yeah, give me the volume on stock charts. That would be cool. Thank you. I need to compare it to that other day. I could actually pop stock charts up right quick. That's a good idea. I didn't do it. I thought I would get the quotes actually. So let's see here. $ SPX. I believe it is here. If I can spell it right. Here we go. So the volume's here. So the comparison, and I got to do something to inspect. So the comparison here is 2.3 into, yeah, 2.5, lighter volume. So it's a lighter volume test here. Let's see about it on the NDX and the Russell. The Russell most important. Let's look at that one next. RUT, and on RUT we've got, so they've got it. Now, first of all, I want to test against this one. That one is, where's my volume? Can't see my volume. 1 point, where the heck's volume? Somehow I'm missing it. 0. It doesn't give me volume on the Russell. Okay, well that's worthless. All right, let's look at the XIC. What do they have? They have it as comp probably. Yeah, so the volumes here I think are going to be lighter also. 2.3. Yeah. So I believe that's exactly what you're going to see, right? You're going to see lighter volume across the board on all of these, and you know, that does nothing. It confirms what I was saying. I mean, sector's saying it, index is saying it. You know, maybe this thing is going to break, and I still think it probably will, but they're going to bounce it first. Twitter and Trulia, yeah, I mean, I don't know what you're trying to do with this guy. I mean, I don't see anything special here. It's just a big range. Yeah, it's going to test this high volume low before it's over with. So if you're wanting to buy into it, you want to let it test it, and you better be very careful down there because you got a bunch of swing points. So I'd be careful with this one. The other one's Twitter. I don't think you want to mess with Twitter until it comes back and does a retest off that high volume low. So that's the weekly. Go to the daily. Yeah, I would. You got a huge weekly low. It's probably going to trade back down there again. So I'd simply wait on it. And I think we did the ABCD measurement here to 27 something when we did it sometime back. So I think you will get another test of that low, and you might get that 27. You know, whatever this ABCD structure is, I don't remember what the number was. And if so, that would probably give you an entry point finally on Twitter. All right, I'm about out of time here. Folks, bounces. How many times can this thing bounce? I don't know. How many times can it try to press lower? I don't know that either. One thing I do know is there ain't much more room on either side. And what I'm talking about, and I'll go back to the Russell real quick here. What I'm talking about is it's either going to break this top side, right? We're going to break a swing point high and change the trend, or we're going to break out the lows. And right now, the suggestion is the lows. Having said that, we know that we got a backstop over in Europe probably. And as I said last night, it's a question of how do we come down? Is it before the news and then we rally on the news? Or do we wait until the news, we rally into it, and then sell off after it? Seems to me like one way or the other, we're going to try to break lower here at some point. Thanks a lot, folks. I appreciate it. You tell a friend, tell two. I'm LA. This is, and it was, your daily TA wrap. Have yourself a great night. Take care. I'll see you next time. Good night, folks.